Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my new video where I'm going to go over the different types of supports and how to carry with them. My name is Lolfit. I do educational content. I do guides, I do tip videos, and I do opposition reports where I tell you how to deal with particular champions. If you have any kind of direct questions for me and want to get in contact with me, I have a Discord link down below and also my Twitter link. And I'm always checking those if you guys have any questions. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. The first type of tank, or first type of support I want to go over is the tanks. For example, Braum, Tom, Tarek, Shen. I can't believe I forgot Tarek's name. These are generally really decent supports in higher elos where you can rely on an ADC to put out a decent amount of damage and to carry. Tanks are great with protecting hyper carry champions, particularly things like Tarek and Braum and Tom, and then Shen is a little bit left out unless you have really good shield timing. Now, this class thrives against a team that doesn't have much tank shred, so if they're running something like an assassin and just low damage towards tank champions, they can be extremely effective. And also, things like Braum can also protect you from missiles. So there's a bunch of great different choices you can do. For example, with Tarek, you can play him really well into high bursty champions. And then high pick champions, Tom Kench is very good. And then Shen is going to be a great pickup into split pushing comps either on your side or the enemy side. Alright, and next up, a great way, I would say the second best way to carry low elo games would be with the engaged supports where you can automatically just dominate lanes if you're very good with them. First up, Pyke, one of the pretty difficult champions to execute. He is a really strong champion, I think, in the current meta. He can do a lot with his pick potential and can do he has a really unique type of playstyle where he can share gold around to everyone. Leona is also really good with AoE, her AoE ult stun, and really good against champions with low mobility. So Leona is a great pickup into things like Ashe, things like Jhin that can't really run away. Things like Jinx, you get my idea there. Things like Rakan is a very good engaged support and also mixes it a bit up with giving a bit of shielding for your allies, so it's good with a hyper carry, and then also when your team is lacking engage, that's when Rakan can really shine. Next up, Thresh, I would say is one of the hardest champions to execute out of the support role to the degree that he needs to be for you to justify picking Thresh. He's one of those champions where you probably should be almost one-tricking him if you really want to look to climb with him. Next up, Alistar. I think he is really good into any kind of team fight that is going to be a lot of people that are grouping up a lot, because he has that great AoE knockup, and then he is the tankiest support. So if your team isn't too tanky, Alistar is a great pickup because you can just be the main front line for your team in the early and mid game. Next up, Blitzcrank is great against really non-mobile champions and can really just run around and get a lot of picks. I would say he's one of the easiest engaged supports to pick up. Now, my favorite tier with mages out of the support lane. This is really the easiest way, in my opinion, to carry from the support lane because you are able to just become the carry when you have a poor ADC player. You can start picking up resources when they are really faltering. They do a lot of AoE teamfight damage. They can really carry at any point in the game. They're strong in lane, they're strong in mid game, and they're strong in late game. So these are great pickups for people that aren't necessarily a support player and are getting auto-filled, and mages are just a great, this is how I've climbed every single time outside of a few, I've climbed a few times on different accounts with top and mid laners, but mostly I'm doing my climbing on these mage support champions. Let's go over Zyra first. Great burst, not the best tank shred, a decent amount of consistent damage with her plants. Then Annie is a very good roamer in my opinion, especially if you go something like a Predator setup. She can be a great roaming carry, and she also provides a lot of AoE damage. Brand is the best mage support right now to run into tank heavy comps. Vel'Koz is also another decent tank shredder with his true damage, and also a very safe mage support. So he has one of the longest ranges for that mage support role. So he is a great pickup if you are a mage player and you are essentially picking blind. Next up, Zilean. I wouldn't recommend him that much. He does pair very well with Bruisers, though, at the current moment, because he gives a speed up and a revive for divers, so he has great synergies with that, but he is a little bit subpar with his current kit. Next up, we have Lux, a good amount of AoE damage, but you're not going to have the pure resources that you need to be as effective as a mid laner. That's where the other AP mages, I think, really thrive with Zyra, Brand, and Vel'Koz. They aren't really such high econ as I would say Annie and Lux are currently. Next up, Fiddlesticks as a mage support. He provides so much CC for your team. So if your team is really lacking with CC, Fiddlesticks can be a great pickup. Now, Enchanters. I think that there is a really good mix here with what they can do. I would say that things like Morgana, I kind of debated back and forth whether to put her under Major Enchanter, or, I mean, she even has decent pick. I think Morgana is probably the best support right now. She just brings so much with her kit. She enables Bruisers really well with her Black Shield. She gives a great amount of pick with her Q, and she provides an immense amount of wave management with her W, and has a big teamfight impact with her ult. Not as big as some of the other mage supports, but she can also provide a decent impact. The next up, let's talk about Janna. She is really good with protecting hyper carries. She doesn't have the biggest carry potential, though, which is a pretty big downside in my opinion about Janna, and also with the shield nerfs, and she probably isn't the best pick right now for carrying. Next up, we have Bard. I think he kind of one of those hybrid supports where he does a really good amount of damage in the early game. He gives you a lot of lane control. He can do a lot of things, but he is a little bit more difficult to execute out of that role. He can have a super high impact, or he can completely screw over your team. So Bard is an interesting pickup right now. Nami, she can carry a little bit in the early game, but in the late and mid game, you definitely have to end up relying on having a decent ADC player that you have gotten enough resources to carry with. Next up, we have Sona. She is very good for team fight heavy games where you're going to see a lot of 5v5s, and you can just be spamming out those shields and that extra damage, and that's where she really shines. She's not the best in 2v2 situations, but she just really thrives in those bigger skirmishes and 5v5s. Karma right now, I think she's in a pretty tough spot. I used to play so much Karma out of the mid and the top, but after nerfs and after some they nerfed her Mantra Q a little bit, and she's just in a really tough spot, especially with the shield nerf, and then Aatrox coming a bit into the meta and destroying her shielding and her healing. It's kind of tough going right now for Karma, as the other healers might be in a bit of a better spot. Soraka is really good right now. She does a lot of damage with her E, surprisingly, and gives a decent amount of sustain, and can be good into really poke heavy lanes. With her good amount of sustain and decent early game damage people will underestimate. Next up, Lulu can be very good against divers. She is a great pickup if they have 2 or 3 divers, and you're just able to polymorph them off your carry, and then also ult your carry to CC them even further. She was hit a little bit with the shields being degrading over time, but she is still a decent pickup. So overall, I would say the easiest way to carry solo queue right now is with the mage supports, then next up into the engaged supports, and then probably the enchanters into tanks. So that's not to say you can't climb with tanks, it's just going to be a little bit harder. If you are in, I would say, Diamond 3 elo, where you can start actually relying on your ADCs to carry, I think tanks are an amazing pickup right now to protect, but when you can't really rely on your carries, it really feels bad as a tank player to just be like, hey, I did so well in laning phase and we're doing okay, but the carries just really aren't outputting the damage that your team needs. So yeah, that will wrap up my video. If you guys have any feedback or critique, please comment down below. If you enjoyed the content, please remember to like and subscribe, and as always guys, take it easy.